Area High School football with Fred Albers and Kevin Lovell. Brought to you tonight by M-Banks. Get our momentum working for you.
Good evening. This is the final Football Fever show of the season. I think we have a pretty special show in store. In addition to games played tonight, we'll be naming the all-area team, the player of the year, plus taking a musical look at the highlights of this 1985 football season. But first, a very good by-district ball game played tonight. Very good if you happen to be an Andrus Eagle fan.
The Andrus Eagles look to be the class of El Paso football. Austin gave them a good game earlier this year, but fell short. Andrus and Austin will be carrying the pride of El Paso into the playoffs.
Tonight, Andrus was completely dominant against Riverside. Let's go to Sports Central now, and Rich Henkel.
Thank you very much, Fred. You know, Andrus came out pumped up but very confident. If you remember last year when they won the district title for the first time ever, they were the most emotional group I'd ever seen on a football field. This year it was a different team that went out there poised and confident. Riverside, on the other hand, first time ever in the playoffs, the jitters were obvious. Let's go to the highlights and you can see what I mean. There was all kinds of Eagle pride in the stands, as you can see. Andrus fans all over the Sun Bowl. For Lou James and the Riverside Rangers, though, it was a chance to prove that District 258 was not out of it. On their first drive, the Eagles took the ball, a very time-consuming drive. Emilio Pittman not shy to take his own number, this time into the 3-yard line. But when they need to score, who do they go to? William Doctor. The Doctor is called, and he gets in for a 7-0 lead. Believe it or not, the route was on. It's 14-0 when the Doctor pulls down a David Samaniego punt at his own 45. He misses 3 tackles there. Another man misses him, and he's gone. Down the sidelines, he broke 6 tackles on this to go 55 yards, and it's 21-0. Then the defense scored a few points, and I mean a few. Scott Orzowski pulls down Ruben Cadena from behind, 23-0 Andrus, still in the first. The Doctor came back again. Here at 35 yards, he simply outruns everybody, and it's a big, big Andrus lead. Can he do anything else but run? Yes, indeed. Watch this. Good defense by Rangers. And he just steps up into the pocket and lofts it up. He literally threads the needle. Jimmy Jones on the receiving end, a beautiful catch. It's 37-0. On the other hand, it was David Samaniego's turn. He got shut down completely by the Rangers.
Had me, Maxwell, and George Mark, all 3 linebackers were keying on him. And then when he was going to the single back, we'll just move up and head up on him.
The Rangers did a little bit better, and Samaniego got a few yards in the second half. Here he gets the ball at the 19 and bangs through a few tackles to cash in. They are not completely dead, and as you can see, the cheerleaders never quite give up. But it's almost over. Samaniego, he pulls a little Doctor himself. He pulls up. Look at this catch. Jesus Mora, an NFL-style catch if I've ever seen one. It's 42-13 when Andrus scores one more. This is Kenny Johnson. And when you look at the Sun Bowl tonight, just about everything spelled Andrus pride. No question about it, 50-12.
Yes, because our coaches really prepared us for this game because we knew Riverside was going to be a pretty aggressive team, so they did a super job getting us ready.
First of all, we'll give some coaches a lot of credit, some players a lot of credit. Without the type of coaching staff that I have and without the type of athletes I have, we wouldn't be in this situation tonight.
The situation he is talking about is a very comfortable one. Last year they had a lot of problems in the playoffs. This year it is a totally different Andrus team. They have blown out everybody in the second half of the season. They had their trouble at the beginning, but as we saw against Austin, 30-6, a great matchup there between Stephen Lee and William Doctor. The Doctor leading his team to a 30-6 win. This team is something special, and I think their next opponent in district play, in by-district play, is going to find that out. Kevin and Fred?
Well, one thing is for certain, 1-5A certainly had the 2 best football teams in town this season. Andrus looking impressive tonight, and last night Austin looked very good against a tough Bel Air squad, Kevin.
That's right, Fred. Last night, Austin advanced into the area playoffs with an impressive 41-21 victory over Bel Air. Let's pick up some of those highlights now. Bel Air took an early 7-0 lead in this ball game. Quarterback sneaked by George Ramirez, and that gives the Highlanders a 7-0 lead right there. But in the second quarter, Austin got warmed up with the score tied at 7. Stephen Lee fielded a Highlander punt. He decides to sweep right and follows his blockers all the way into the end zone, and does he receive some super blocking on this play. All the way for Stephen Lee. Late in the half, Lee scored again on a 5-yard pass reception, and Austin would never be headed, cruising to a 41-21 victory. The celebration, though, was not a wild one. Austin already had its sights set on who's next, a mighty mojo from defending state champion Odessa Permian.
think we're a lot better team now, and they lost some of the good players, and I think we can contend with them.
I think, they're just another football team just like us. If we go out and give our best effort, I think we can beat them.
Really looking forward to next weekend. Well, what about the Mojo?
Well, we've been looking forward to it for a year, and we feel like we can play with the Mojo. We've got a good ball club.
This is the way the area playoffs shape up. Of course, Andrus defeating Riverside tonight in bi-district. Andrus will now play the winner of Midland Lee against Amarillo. That ball game will be played tomorrow. I can tell you this. If Midland Lee would defeat Amarillo, and Midland Lee is favored, then Andrus would play Midland Lee next Saturday in Midland. That's if Midland Lee defeats Amarillo tomorrow. The other area playoff is set. Andrus is going to play, or check that. Let's move on and take a look at Austin, who will play Odessa Permian. That's because the Mighty Mojo defeated Amarillo Palo Duro tonight 34-15. Austin defeated Riverside last night. That means the Panthers will play the Mojo next Friday night at the Sun Bowl. Austin against Odessa Permian next Friday night, November 22nd, a 7:30 kickoff at the Sun Bowl. The Panthers looking for a little bit of revenge. Kevin, you've had a chance to watch two of the finest backs ever in El Paso High School football history, I guess. You've seen Stephen Lee in several games. You've seen William Doctor. Who's the better back?
You got a coin in your pocket? Let's flip it. Doctor might be a little bigger, a little faster perhaps.
A little younger, too. He's still
a little younger. Lee, more impressive statistics. He did carry the ball more, a little shiftier. I talked to a UTEP coach. Of course, they're scouting Stephen Lee as many colleges around the country. They say for 5 yards, he's as fast as anybody. And he just, he goes to 0 to 40 in no time.
What's also impressive about Stephen Lee, he seldom takes a straight-on hit. He seems to be shifty going through, something like Tony Dorsett. If he puts on another 20 or 30 pounds of muscles, he could be a very formidable force in football in years to come. We have much more to come. For instance, the Battle of the Mesilla Valley is next. Tonight, of course, I'm talking about Las Cruces against Mayfield, annually held at Aggie Memorial Stadium. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the highlights. A cold night in Cruces for this ballgame, but a good crowd always shows up. Some with signs that are, a little bit imaginative. The Bulldogs ornery ready for this ballgame, but Mayfield draws first blood. Daryl Daniels sweeps right and goes into the end zone for a 7-0 lead. And let's do those jumping jacks. I think they may just be trying to stay warm here on the sideline. Now remember, this is New Mexico high school football, and yes, you can advance the fumble. Very important to keep it in mind on this play. John Lee knows his rule book because he picks up Joe Patton's mistake and has clear sailing into the end zone. Cruces then added a 2-point conversion for an 8-7 Bulldog lead. The Trojans came right back and tried a little bit of the passing game. Mark Majecko at quarterback, but look at Robbie Acosta. He intercepts, and those Bulldogs love this kind of action, don't you know? Las Cruces, though, could not move the ball. Mayfield took over and once again passes. This time, Majecko's pass is complete. That's David Nunez with the interception. Las Cruces coach Stan Petermeyer starting to get a little bit worried, and with good reason, because Daniels has the ball, and he scores one more time over the top, and the Trojans lead it 13-8. Defense dominated the rest of the period. Darren Trujillo sacks Trudy Martinez. And the Bulldogs play defense the same way. Daniels can get little yardage here. And what a second half Las Cruces came up with. They went on to surprise Mayfield to the tune of 37-26. And because both Cibola and El Dorado won tonight, the loss knocks the Trojans out of the playoffs. Kevin?
A tough loss for Mayfield. Before this season started, Alamogordo, at least in one poll, was picked to finish last in their district. Going into tonight's final game of the regular season against Roswell, the Tigers were 9-0 and ranked number 1 in the state, but they had to defeat Roswell to guarantee themselves the district championship. But if Roswell was to win, that meant that the Coyotes would be the district champions. Alamogordo would go in as the number 2 seed, and that would eliminate Clovis from the playoffs. So let's go to Alamogordo's Tiger Stadium and see exactly what happened. The Tigers have been eating everybody up this year. including our cameraman. The Alamogordo fans out in force. They needed to be. Roswell has a fine team. The Tigers come out smoking. Quarterback Greg Stevens hits Anthony Branch for a big chunk of yardage. The team looks like the Pittsburgh Steelers, don't they? Or maybe the Iowa Hawkeyes. They keep it moving down the field. Stevens fires to Branch again. Down to the 1-yard line he goes. On the next play, Tony Gonzalez powers into the end zone. Alamo makes it look easy, leading 7-0. This guy put the Tiger on his hat. The Coyotes run from the bone. Quarterback Sean Reeves goes along the sidelines, and he breaks it big for the team. This one looks like Oklahoma, don't they? However, on the next play, Big John Singleton, a 220-pound behemoth fullback, makes a big mistake. He fumbles the ball. It's stripped by David Bailey, and Alamo takes over. Both defenses stiffen, so we move into the second quarter. Roswell on the move again. Reeves to Darren White, a big gainer for the Coyotes. Alamo makes them work for the score, though. On 4th and 3, Peter Sanders causes the Roswell following to celebrate. He slithers into the end zone. It's 7-6. After a Tiger penalty, Roswell goes for 2, and Sanders crashes in. The Coyotes lead it 8-7. Alamo now had to buckle down. The Tigers on the hunt again. Jesse Harris will ramble for big yardage right here. Then, as you'll see at the end of this play, boys will be boys. The players not only into this game, also the crowd from Alamo, a big crowd on hand. So is Tiger coach Gary Veeam. He wants his team to get organized. They do. Stevens lets loose a completion to Wilson Holland. Alamo, though, has to settle for a field goal try. Brad Adams checks in to drill the three-pointer. Alamo regains the lead 10-8. On the final play of the first half, Alamogordo hopes for the big play and almost gets it. Mike Bernard grabs the Stevens pass, and he heads for the goal line. Remember, the clock has run out. He has to score, and not quite at the 2-yard line he goes down. It's 10-8 Alamo at halftime. But in the second half, Alamogordo moves on to a 32-16 triumph. The Tigers finish at 10-0, and they will have the home field advantage throughout the New Mexico State playoffs. A great year for Coach Gary Veeam and his Tigers.
Congratulations to all the folks in Alamogordo. Yet another New Mexico area team concluded its season tonight. I'm talking about the Gadsden Panthers. You know, this is Gadsden's first year to compete in the New Mexico 4A district, and they were hoping to make a big splash, and they had a great pre-district, but they ran into a little trouble in their own district. Tonight they concluded the season against Cibola. Let's take a look at the ball game. The Panthers clad tonight in the dark uniforms. They trailed 7-6 in the second quarter. Cibola on the move. That pass complete to David Patterson. But the Panther defense stiffened. Tim Bateman nowhere to go. And that's Aaron Martinez getting the tough tackle. Gadsden used the shotgun tonight. Watch that snap. Benny Avalos handles it, though, and completes the pass to Luis Hidalgo. Avalos from the shotgun again. However, this pass is forced just a bit into the coverage, and Jackie Satriana makes the interception. Gadsden got the ball back, but once again the snap is bad, and this time Avalos cannot recover. Cibola is in business, this time on the Gadsden 20-yard line. Several plays later, Satriana scores the touchdown. Cibola on top, 13-6. Gadsden tries to get that running game going, but no success here, folks. The Panthers forced to punt again. How many times have a coach told you that the special team play is so important? It is here. Touchdown, Cibola on the block punt. Gadsden made one whale of a comeback in the second half after trailing 19-6, but it fell short. Cibola wins 25-22. The season's over for the Panthers, along with the Bulldogs of Las Cruces and the Mayfield Trojans. Let's take a look at the scoreboard tonight. The Cibola victory, combined with the Mayfield loss, knocks Mayfield out of the playoffs when you also consider that El Dorado won tonight. Mayfield could have been the #1 seed in the district with a win tonight. The Las Cruces Bulldogs spoil those plans. A great season, though, for both ball clubs. Clovis defeated Hobbs tonight 35-0, and since Alamogordo won, that means Clovis is also in the playoffs as a district runner-up. El Dorado, as I mentioned, defeated Manzano 28-14, knocking Las Cruces, or rather Mayfield, out of the playoffs and putting Cibola in. Alamogordo will finish the season ranked #1 in the state of New Mexico. Hats off to Gary Veeam and that bunch. A great season, 32-16. They conclude the regular season with a win over Roswell this evening. What an upset. Silver City ranked #1 in the state among the smaller schools. Deming pulls the upset tonight, 15-14. Kevin, some Texas high school football scores now.
Okay, Fred, and these are playoffs, at least the early scores here. Kermit rolls on, defeating Lubbock Roosevelt 40-7. Fabens gets its playoff shot tomorrow against Post. That will be again tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock. I believe that game is in Fort Stockton. Van Horn, Reagan County. Van Horn's season comes to a defeat. They lose in the playoffs to Reagan County 41-12, but still a good season for Van Horn as they won District 7-2A. McCamey over Marfa 32-14, and a couple of Class A games to close out the season. Fort Davis over Del City 63-12. They win District 5A. Sierra Blanca defeats Buena Vista to close out their season 28-18. Not a bad year for the Vaqueros. And finally, Tornillo wraps up a tremendous regular season, defeating Balmorhea on the road 32-27.
Well, that concludes all of the live football highlights that we have to show you tonight. But believe me, folks, the fun has just begun. We still have lots of honors to give out tonight. This is kind of like graduation evening, and we'll be back in just a moment. One of them, hundreds of games, we watch thousands of players. At the end of the season, we try to single out one player who had the most outstanding year, the New 7 Pepsi-Cola Player of the Year.
And that's why this trophy right here is going to go to a fellow that we've come to know, played for Austin High this year, and he's with us live. Let's go to Sports Central with Rich Hinkle.
Thank you very much, Kevin and Fred. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Sitting on my left, Stephen Lee. Stephen, I met you the first week of the season. I asked you after you had a tremendous afternoon or evening. I said, how many yards would you like to get this year? You confidently said 2,000. As the season went on, did the pressure mount?
Yeah, because during the season, you know, as in the middle of it, I kind of thought it would be hard to get to 2,000. But as we started getting to district, you know, it just came easily. You know, I had a feeling that I'd be able to get it.
Now, everybody talks about Stephen Lee and Carl Gray, but there's 5 or 6 men in front of you who really make your job somewhat easy some nights, right?
Oh, it's a lot easier running behind our line, you know, because on most of the plays, you know, we run to the outside, you know, and basically for me to really get all my yards, I have to cut back a lot of times. And what they have to do is just really hold their blocks to at least get past the line. When I get past the line, you know, it's basically on my own. I can't.
So far, a great year for Austin, but the next game, the Mighty Mojo. Last year, 55-0, they beat you. What do you remember about Permian besides that score?
The only thing I remember is seeing all the touchdowns that they scored. You know, but I think this year, you know, they lost a lot of their key players this year and from last year. But I think if we play them this year, it'll be a lot tougher game.
Now, you know they're going to key on you, and they're going to key on Carl, as Andrews did when they beat you 30-6. Is there any difference in the team this 3 weeks later that you might be able to use against Odessa next week?
I think our passing attack is starting to come around. I think they just can't key on our running attack, you know, because really in our last 3 games, you know, Mike Beltran has been, you know, finding the open receiver a lot of times.
A great senior year for Stephen Lee. Could you have done any better in your words?
I don't think so.
We will certainly find out next week as Odessa Permian comes here to the Sun Bowl to play Austin High. Stephen Lee, our new 7 Pepsi-Cola Player of the Year. Let's go back to you, Fred and Kevin.
Thank you, Rich. And Stephen, you know you're keeping late hours, but we know Coach Carlos Lowenberg is on the road scouting, so we won't tell him that you're up so late on this Friday night. Now, you know, Stephen Lee has accomplished so much this year, and, you know, soon his high school career will come to an end. But for all of us that have seen him run, we just like to say, Stephen, long may you run.
We've been through some things
the new 7 Pepsi-Cola Player of the Year. Selecting our new 7 Coach of the Year was a much more difficult task. Several outstanding performances. Look at District 2-5A. Bob Savage had the Highlanders tough as always. And what about the job Lou James did with the Riverside Rangers, leading that club into the playoffs for the first time in the school's history? And at Hanks, Pat O'Neill turned the program around and almost snuck into the playoffs, but by the flip of a coin. In District 1-5A, you have to consider Alan Sepkowitz with the job he did at Andrus, and Carlos Lowenberg with Austin's fine performance. However, our Coach of the Year goes to a man who completely reversed the fortunes of the oldest high school in town. Coach Robert Pancoast of El Paso High, the new 7 Coach of the Year. He turned the fortunes of the Tigers completely around this year. For the first time in 19 seasons, El Paso High did not have a losing record. The school on the hill finished at 5-5 and pulled off perhaps the biggest upset of the season, shocking District 5A champion Andrus. Pancoast has the smallest student body from which to pull his players from in that school district, and we congratulate Robert Pancoast of El Paso High, our new 7 Coach of the Year. Kevin?
A very worthy selection, no doubt about that. You know, now it's time to move to our new 7 Super 7. We picked 14 of the best football players you've ever seen. 7 on offense, 7 on defense. Let's get it rolling.
On defense, a mad hatter is Emilio Pittman of Andrus. The aggressive two-way performer could have just as easily been placed on our Super 7 offense, but it's on defense where Pittman stood out for Andrus. Hector Pacheco of Bel Air is the biggest player on our squad. Pacheco made life difficult for opposing teams, dominating both lines of scrimmage. Pacheco of Bel Air. Isleta had the finest defense in El Paso. Actually, the entire team should be honored, but we must choose one. He's Armando Chavez, an aggressive, all-over-the-field performer for the Indians. At Hanks, the resurrection was in part led by a much-improved defense. David Abada anchored the Knights as they improved to a 5-5 record, including a big upset of Andrus. Riverside turned things around this year as well, thanks to an outstanding line featuring number 77, Mike Madrid. Madrid struck fear in the hearts of every opponent. Chris Harris of Eastwood roamed all over the field, making tackles for the troop. Harris, a solid 200-pounder, checks in on the Super 7 defensive team. Coach Gary Veem and his Alamogordo Tigers stunned the state of New Mexico, rising to number 1 in the polls and along the way defeating 3 El Paso teams. We selected Tony Gonzalez at linebacker as a worthy choice on our all-area team. Let's move to offense. We shall begin with Big Tony Quintanilla Burgess. The 215-pound senior opened holes and blocked for a potent Mustang attack. Quintanilla Burgess. Our center, Carlos Arujo of El Paso High. Big number 55 was part of the best Tiger football team in 2 decades. Arujo represents El Paso. At Las Cruces Mayfield, the Trojans had another tremendous year. Versatile two-way performer Michael Ferrari makes our team. Ferrari with 8 interceptions on defense and more than 600 yards rushing on offense. At quarterback, George Ramirez of Bel Air passed the Highlanders to the District 2-5A title. Ramirez teamed with a bevy of standout receivers to produce the best overall statistics in the city of El Paso. We couldn't just choose one quarterback, and that's why Gabby Lujan of Burgess also makes our select 7. Lujan led the city in passing yardage and stunned opposing secondaries with his accurate arm. Lujan of Burgess. At wide receiver, none other than Julian Dozier, the fleet one from Jefferson. Dozier got off to a slow start, but by the end of the season, the Silver Foxes had claimed 3 victories, and the flashy sprinter was directly responsible for the big comeback at Jefferson High. And the final selection to our Super 7 team, who else but William Doctor of Andrus. The Doctor passed for 1 touchdown, and he also ran for a whole bunch more. Doctor is also a top-flight student. He's only a junior, so he'll be back to wreak havoc on District 1-5A opposition again next year. Doctor of Andrus completes our new 7 Super 7 offense.
Believe me, folks, there were some very, very tough selections in picking our all-area team. And that is by no means all of the heroes this season.
That's true, Fred. We're going to take a quick look now at some of the other superlatives among high school play across the area.
The run of the year belongs to Manny Madrid of Fabens. Watch him break tackle after tackle against Clint. Madrid will not go down until he scores a Wildcat touchdown. The most gutty performer, David Pettis, quarterback Hanks. Pettis ran from punt formation, scrambled, scratched, and clawed as the Knights returned to respectability. Most original offense, Eastwood. Coach Todd Ware always has a few tricks up his sleeve. The flea flicker, just one of them. The catch of the year, Rene Hidalgo de Sleta. He leaks and steals the ball from the Eastwood defender. The player to watch next year, Big Jeff Edwards of Irvin. A powerful running back. The colleges are already drooling over it. The Hard Luck Award goes to Bowie. Winless again, Coach Jesse Cordero and his crew were also hit hard by no pass, no play. The Wild Animal Award to San Elizario. Muskrats and dogs frequented the Lower Valley Stadium. The most incredible achievement to Stephen Lee of Austin. Lee scored touchdowns the first time he touched the ball in 5 consecutive games. The happiest moment when Riverside defeated Bel Air for the first time ever. The surprise teams, the Rangers, Hanks and El Paso High. The Being in the Right Place at the Right Time Award to new 7th photographer Rudy Norte. Norte follows the ball perfectly into the waiting arms of Victor Alston of Hanks. The most fired-up team, Andrus, against Austin. The convincing 30-6 triumph in the unofficial city championship game. The long overdue award to Van Horn for his first district title in 15 years. The most exciting game, Eastwood scoring with only seconds remaining on the clock to defeat Hanks. The Best Fans Award to the Riverside Followers who rocked the Rangers Stadium week after week. And finally, the sit-down award to Bel Air's Bob Savage. The leg operation kept him down, but never out. 1985, a season of great memories, Fred.
It has been a fun season, and photographer Rudy Norte has captured some of the season highlights and put it to music.
This is the game where we've been waiting for all your life. This is the one we've been wanting for. We've got to really go out there and give it our best, and I know you will. And that's all I want out of it, your very best. No one can give better than their best, and that's all we're asking out of it.
Some of them awards, man. We got those awards again. Come on, look on this way here, you guys. Instead of up cushion, ain't no heroes. Heroes on this. Can we run the 3 hole? Is that end going to come down? Now they saw the guy. Take the ball and run out of the back of the end zone. Run out. Don't get tackled. Get the ball as quick as you can and run out of the back of the end zone for safety. Heroes. Look, hands in here.
High school football, 1985. I hope you enjoyed each and every week of the season. We've had some fun. I hope you did too.
I'm Kevin Lovell.
And I'm Fred Albers. See you again next year on another edition of Football Fever. We'd like to close with credits thanking all the people who made this show possible. Good night.